We love old cemeteries and churchyards, so come with us as we explore these places for the past. Today we are in Gorton, another part of Manchester, and we've just spotted that out for a walk, and yeah, that looks like quite a big graveyard. Let's go for a wee look. It comes as no surprise. As I said, I am in Gorton. The reason I'm here is my van is in for some work in the garage, so I went for a walk and found this. In Gorton, it's Gorton Cemetery, unsurprisingly. It's a Green Flag Award winner. That's not something I've ever seen before on a graveyard. This is a graveyard that is getting some work done in it. There's a VC plaque for somebody called John Reddit. I'm guessing he'll be on a war grave. There's a Children Grieve 2 project, which I think is a brilliant idea, and a Did You Know project. We'll go and see if we can find those when we're wandering about. So this is quite a big graveyard. No idea of its age, but that's what we're going to go and find out. I'm guessing this is a municipal cemetery because it's got the Church of England, which is white, blue, which is non-conformist. I'd definitely be a non-conformist, Roman Catholic, and no graves. Oh, and it says it's got some chapels and some memorials, including the War Memorial. Let's go for a wee look. I'm going to guess before we start it's all 1900s-ish. Well, that's 1967, that's 1948, and then 2002. Oh, first off, straight in, there's a war grave. That is Gunner Cyril Hobson of the Royal Artillery from 1945. Hello, Gunner Hobson. Right, that's a nice start. Oh, right, I think we might be doing quite a lot of war graves. Hang on, let's see how many I can see from standing here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There might be quite a lot of war graves here, and on that side too. Okay, we might not do them all. That is a sergeant, a wireless operator air gunner from 1940. So this is all in the 1940s. This is really quite an amazing wee discovery, or quite big discovery. There's a lot of war graves here. I don't want to bore you with war graves, but I do like stopping by and saying hello. So we'll go over here, and it's that is Lance Corporal Wilkins and Aircraftsman Jones, again both from the Second World War. Hi guys, right, let's go down this way and see. There's war graves everywhere. I wonder if that's because of proximity to a base, or proximity certainly to the airport for the airmen. But there is Private Gardner of the Royal Sussex Regiment. And down here there are, yeah, this might get a bit much, but that is Private Gregson of the Pioneer. I've not seen a Pioneer Corps gentleman before. Keep him in thine arms, O Lord, now that he is thine, love him as we loved him. Okay, and let's go down here where there are, yeah, you guessed it, lots and lots more Commonwealth war graves. I don't think we're going to have time to see them all, or indeed inclination, but let's just skip through here. Excuse me guys. To Sapper Walker of the Royal Engineers, next to Frank Chamberlain in 1940. That's quite a nice stone, isn't it? It's Art Deco-ish. Right, that's been quite a good wee start. There are some plots that are not exactly unmarked because they've got little markers, but there's nothing written on them, so that's A587. And there's another one where the name number is lost beneath the... Yes, I know I said name number, I'm doing it as I go along. Right, let's keep going down this way. So that one there is Margaret Alice Hughes from 1942, and next to her is another war grave, Private Russell from the South Lancashire Regiment, the local regiment in these parts, and he died Second World War, aged 22. So let's go over here and see. This is quite a nice little stone, isn't it? These low ones are usually 1950s, we've found out from our time down here, and that is Elizabeth Watts, 1951. It's almost like we know what we're talking about. And here's another one of these little markers. This is L341, which means nothing to me, but on the other side it says Dandy. Just Dandy, nothing else. And that makes me want to go back down to the ones that we passed down here and see if they've got anything written on the back. See, when I was saying there was nothing on them, I was talking nonsense. These must be like local authority gravestones for people that couldn't afford a big headstone. But yeah, there's Mary A. Greenborough, who died in 1940. And next to Nellie Wolstenholme, and Thomas Wolstenholme on that tiny little stone. The area where we are is called Gorton, as I've said, and it is not the nicest piece of Manchester, but it's definitely better than it was. There's quite a big monastery here somewhere that amazingly has survived, but I don't know where the old graveyard would have been, because this is very much an industrial revolution part of the world. In fact, the path that I was walking along when I found this place is called the Fallowfield Loop, and it's an old railway line, so that was moving coal and moving goods and people when the factories and the mills were in full swing. And as we're getting further away from the entrance, that's all quite new, but that there is back 1950s, and over there's a Manchester United fan's grave that looks like it's quite recent, so we'll keep walking down this way. And this bit here is also looking a bit different. All these headstones are the same, and they've all got multiple names on them, but not from the same family. I wonder, right, okay, so this is Clara Stockton, who was 77, and Anna Dransfield, who was 1 month, and Glenn Ratcliffe, who was, oh look, that was 12 hours. So I don't know, maybe this is a hospital graveyard, maybe something to do with a local maternity hospital or something. I have no idea. That is a complete guess, but I will find out and I will let you know. Yeah, this is weird. They're all from the 1950s mostly, 1957, 1958. And that was Neil Gibson, aged 2 hours. And oh wow, look at this one. That is Paul Keppel, who died 1957, aged 20 minutes. I'm going to have to find out what all these gravestones are. That's all 1950s, people in their 70s in the 1950s, 1955, 1956. Kathleen Burrows there was 33 in 1956. This is amazing. I don't know what the story here is, but I'm sure there is definitely an interesting story. Look at the ages on that stone. They're not the same family, they've all got different names, but there's Arthur, who was 59, and there's Owen, who was 1 month, and there's Kenneth, who was 6 years, and Paul, who was 5 weeks, and then James, who was 68 years. I don't know what the story here is, as I keep saying. Whatever it is or was, there are lots and lots of these stones, and they go all the way up here in this row. I'm guessing at one point this was the edge of the cemetery, because facing them, certainly at this part, there's lots of much newer stones, but these are amazing. I don't know what the story is here. Who was Wallace Beresford, who died aged 51, and who was Elizabeth Jones, and who are all these people on these stones? Every one of these graveyards that we've gone to has had something fascinating like this. You keep thinking that you've seen it all, and then you come across something new, something different. And just here at the very top end, I wasn't going to do any more of these unless I saw anything that was different, but there's little Jessica K. Roberts, stillborn in 1988, so that's a much later edition than the rest. And there's some full-scale Manchester swearing going on in there as a woman goes absolutely mental at her child for opening the door of the car. This is just really interesting. I want to know who these people were and why they are all here together. And that stone there has all from 1959, but it's got people between 89 years and 12 hours on it. Right, we'll keep moving up here, trying to avoid the scary people. There is Lance Corporal Lees from the Irish Guards, and Clara Ingham from 1966, and Martha, who died in 1942. So let's keep going along this wee bit. Oh, there's another airman, Flight Sergeant Jones, wireless operator and air gunner, again from the Royal Air Force. So let's go up this way and see if there's anything particularly interesting. They're quite well spaced out in this cemetery. They've got lots and lots of space for Fusilier Spate of the Lancashire Fusiliers and Private Jackson of the King's Regiment. Again, this is all Second World War. I'm not entirely sure we're going to find a First World War part in this graveyard. I really should do research before I come out, but I never actually do, so yeah, you have to keep putting up with me making it up as I go along. I'm not going to say I've never seen so many war graves, because I've been to Belgium and France quite a lot, but I've never seen so many in the UK dotted about as opposed to in one cemetery. So there's Sergeant Mellor of the Royal Engineers, and over there is Guardsman Dalton of the Coldstream Guards, and over here with his back to us, which is a bit rude, is Gunner Worthington of the Searchlight Regiment, Royal Artillery. Now I'm wondering if all these are because there was a big hospital round here somewhere. That would make sense. We'll have to find out and we'll let you know. We're still well and truly in the 1940s and the 1950s. That's Sapper Lee again from the war. But this next tombstone along here, which is again quite a chunky and impressive one, for Mary McClure, Polly, who died in 1943. So yeah, we're still in the 1940s. Nettie over there was 1947, and this was 1946 for William. It's an eclectic mix of old and new, but that's the way a lot of these graveyards are. The plots are not quite as organised as you might think. Like there's a sailmaker. Oh, there's a new thing I haven't seen. J. Smith, sailmaker from HMS Cochrane. And over here there's somebody who is very clearly not forgotten because he's got a Christmas wreath and flowers and stuff. So let's go and see who this is. This is, oh, that is Holly. Don't be like that. Alright, it is J. Reynolds of the Royal Army Service Corps, and I'm getting jagged in the finger. I'm suffering for my art. Ow! It's not quite as bright and sunny as it was yesterday, but let's keep going and see if there's somebody who's still got their Christmas decorations up. That's bad luck, isn't it? You're supposed to take them down by 12th night. Right, I'm going to head for the very furthest corner, which is away over there somewhere, because that's always a good place to start. There's lots of these little stone urns about here that I've not really seen anywhere else. That one's got Mother and Jack written on it, and one up there has got Neighbours written on it, and this one has got Lily. So these are slightly different to the actual gravestones. There's another one of those little local authority gravestones, I guess, because they're very small. And going down here, we're going past 1959. So again, we're not getting any older, which is a bit disappointing, but it's still quite interesting. Although we spend a lot of time in graveyards exploring, it's unusual and slightly unsettling to see the piles of dirt from very, very fresh graves, because that one's quite fresh. And next to it is Aircraftsman 2nd Class Jackson from the Royal Air Force. Again, actually just after the Second World War. But we're heading across here, which definitely looks a wee bit older. But once again, look at that. It's all the same sort of headstones. They're all the same shape, the same pattern, and they've all got lots of names on them. So let's go and have a wee look at this. This is mysterious and quite interesting. So this is the same as the stones that we saw over there. It's lots of different names on the same headstone. There's Rebecca, who was 61, and Ronnie, who was 4, and over there there's Lily, who was 34, and Cecilia, who was 20. That's not easy to say. And Stanley, who was 1 month. This has got to be a hospital, because again, there are dozens and dozens of these stones, each with a lot of names in it. I do like a good mystery, and this is definitely a good mystery. So the ones over there are 1950s, these are 1918, 1920, so yeah, we are quite a long way back in time. We might get back into the 1800s yet. When I say there's a lot of these, I'm not joking, because there's the ones down there with the sort of rounded tops, and the ones here with the slightly more fancy tops, and they go all the way up to that path, and then the row behind is all the ones with the fancy tops, and then the ones with the round tops, and then round tops and fancy tops. That is row 3. Behind that there is row 4. There's a lot of these stones. There's hundreds and hundreds of names. First row was 1918 and Oh, and I've just turned round to look back at where I've been, and the stones are all double-sided, so it's actually hundreds and hundreds and more hundreds of names. So here we're back to 1914 with William and Ellen and Sarah and Alfred and Anne and John, but it's double-sided, so it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, because there's one sinking at the bottom, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 names on that headstone. 16 people buried here. The one next to it, just to prove it's not a fluke, has got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And on the other side, it's got 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So yeah, lots and lots of people buried here. This is a story that we are, as I keep saying, and repeating myself a lot, going to find out more about. So we're now at the far side of that big field of nearly identical gravestones, and we're back to 1904. So this goes from 1904 to 1920, and there must be thousands, not hundreds of people buried there. There are lots and lots of people here. Around the edge, away from that, we're still back in the early 1900s, 1913 there. So 1904 is as far back as we can trace this graveyard. So this is about the same age as the cemetery in Cheadle that we were at the other day. If you check out our Angels and Obelisks video, there's lots of really impressive statues. Here there aren't. I wonder if that's just down to the amount of money. Cheadle is a very posh area, and Gorton, how can I put this, isn't. Over here it's still in the older bit. Let's see if we can find a date. There's Hannah, wife of Edward, from 1927. And there is Ralph, husband of Hannah, who died 1927, 1928. Yeah, so these are all in some sort of chronological order. That's useful to know when you're trying to get your head around how cemeteries are laid out, because the more we do this, the more we know what to expect, which makes it all the more exciting when you find things that you just don't expect. So there's nothing here before the 1900s. There's Jane, beloved wife of William McIlvenna, who died in 1910, and then May, who died in 1908, age 15 months, and their son, who died age 6 weeks. That's not entirely lucky. And then some crosses that have collapsed and are in pieces. And over here there's another war grave. Could we have our First World War grave? What do you think? Let's go for a wee look. Oh yes, we have. We've got Air Mechanic Munton from 1918, June 1918. I didn't notice that war grave because it's quite grubby. The Commonwealth War Graves Commission usually go out and keep these clean, but they've got such a huge number to do and such limited resources these days that I think they probably can't. Not all of the war graves here are actual war graves, because there is Corporal Henry Wright of the 15th Royal Scots, who was killed in action in France in 1916. So there's a few First World War graves dotted about here. That makes it a bit more interesting for me. Well, actually, that's not really a very sensible thing to say. There's no such thing as a not interesting graveyard. Just some of them are more interesting than others, and this one is one of the more interesting ones. There's another couple of war graves up here that I can see from where I'm standing. Can you spot any of them? I think you probably can. Let's go and see if these are First World War as well. Ah, right, no, they are not. Or this one certainly isn't. This is E.H. Strong DCM, Distinguished Conduct Medal of the Lancashire Fusiliers from the Second World War. But beside him, so giving you the idea that chronology doesn't actually count for anything, is 1912. So 1912, 1940. But let's keep heading up this way. This is heading back towards the entrance. This is a graveyard that has got a couple of mysteries. The little stones are one, and there is Lavinia Jones from 1920, and then obviously all the stuff that we saw down there. The hundreds and hundreds of names all sharing a gravestone. Let's go up here and see what we can see over here. These stones are quite impressive. They're all fairly classical. I'm guessing early 1900s. Oh yes, 1919, 1927. And this one next to it is 1919 again. You always come along and look at all the sandstone stones that are starting to fade and starting to wear away, but there's always somebody who's been clever enough or had enough money to make their memorial out of granite, like this one over here, which is going to stand the test of time for centuries probably, in loving memory of Mary Jane from 1918, and their husband and their son and their son's wife. There you go, that's the complete run through of the Beard family. There's another one of those little urns with Dad and Joyce on one, and then Samuel N. Ellis from 1961 on the other, and there's Thomas George, husband of Sarah Kinghorn from 1916. So we're still back in the early 1900s, and there's a war grave. Is this First World War or Second World War? It is, well, it's just after the First World War, October 1919 for Private Prescott there. We do occasionally see grave markers with people's addresses on them. This is the Edwards family memorial of James of 3 Rowsley Street, Gorton, and then Lena the mum from 65 Summers Road, Reddish, and then Arthur, son and brother from 21 Aber Road, Prestatyn, and his ashes are somewhere else. There's a branch of the services that we haven't seen represented anywhere else, well, apart from Arbroath, where they're based, and that is Marine Binner from, again, the Second World War, 1943. Here is David, beloved husband of Henrietta, who died in 1919, and then Henrietta, who died in 1944, and their daughter, who died in 1958. And down the very bottom, a little addendum at the bottom of the thing, Lance Corporal Ralph Aidsforth, nephew of the above, who died in Egypt, January the 1st, 1920. Obviously, I really like the really old tabletop gravestones and hogsback gravestones and all that sort of stuff. But I do think my favourite is probably the 1920s. I think that was the pinnacle of sort of headstone styling, because they've all got this sort of Art Deco, Charles Rennie Mackintosh type look, which I think is really quite cool. Charles Rennie Mackintosh actually did design a gravestone, at least one that I know of. It's in East Weems Cemetery, and you can see that on our Weems Villages video if you're into Charles Rennie Mackintosh, Scotland's most famous designer and architect and general all-round national icon. I'm not sure if this stone is sinking into the ground or if it has been broken, but there's a name that we've never seen before. Mordecai, and Mordecai's wife is called Agnes. What a difference in the two names. You would not expect a Mordecai to marry an Agnes. Let's see if the rest of that stone is about somewhere, or no, but what's that? That's broken off something. It looks like somebody's finger. I think I'll just put that back down there. A statue's finger, obviously, not an actual person's finger. Over there, there's more of the Art Deco 1920s style with the lead inserts. This is a really pretty corner of this little cemetery, or big cemetery. In the cemetery in Cheadle there are lots and lots of big and very impressive statues. Here there is only one that I've seen, and the poor wee cherub has lost her head. They are big into their lead inserts for the letters. I think it's lead anyway on these stones. The problem with that is, unless it's done very well, like that one is all still there. That one there is starting to lose bits. I always go and look on the ground and see if they're still lying about. I don't know what I would do if I found them. Maybe start to build an alphabet or something. Right, I'm heading over in the general direction of what I think is the War Memorial, but I'm not sure because I looked at it on the map, but I'm not very good with maps. So, well, I'm not bad, but I do tend to forget and get sidetracked and go for a wee wander. So we are now in the 1914. Oh, it was born 1858, died 1914. Are we actually back into the oldest bit of the cemetery now? 1914, let's have a look over here. 1916, 1929, 1916. Oh, we're almost back into the 1800s. And we've also got more impressive stones at this end. That one there is a very nice red granite. That one there for Joseph, beloved husband of Edith, is got quite a nice urn on the top. And that's the biggest one of all, although it is starting to be at a bit of a jaunty angle. So let's go and see. This is for the Lawton family. William, beloved husband of Ada, who died in 1918. And on the other side, between the two rows, there are some newer graves. Oh, that's cool. That one's got an aeroplane on it, and the RAF sort of emblem there. In loving memory of Lieutenant Samuel Davidson, Distinguished Conduct Medal, a pilot in the Royal Air Force, killed while flying in Kent in 1918, aged 28. And this red granite stone would once have been more impressive. It is to George Henry, beloved husband of Margaret Riley, from 1920. And the reason I know it would have once been more impressive is up on top of that, it would have had that and that. They're now they're now down there in case they fall off and hit somebody on the head. This is definitely a slightly more impressive, or slightly more eclectic, I think. Not impressive. The stones down there are all fairly consistent. Up here they are all completely different. 1916, his obelisk is lying on the ground, and then that's a really nice little cross, isn't it, with a star in the middle. That is from 1924, sacred to the memory of Harry George Phillips. Over there's some quite impressive things behind the salt bin, so let's go and look at the stones that are over here. They are, I've not seen that style before, with the sort of pyramidal, pointy, obelisky bit on the top, and then right at the very top there's a decorative stone thing, and this is for Sarah Ann Brough from 1902. Oh, we're almost in the 1800s. 1901. Oh, close. And then 1909. There must be a bit here that is from the 1800s. We are going to try and find it. So many Royal Air Force graves in this cemetery. That's got to be something to do with Ringway Airport, and obviously it's all Second World War. There is Sergeant Pemberton. The middle of the cemetery has got these ornamental gardens that are quite nice. It's a facility that people use for recreation as well as being used as a graveyard. People come out for a nice walk, they bring their dogs, which is fine and permitted as long as they clean up after them. And this here is the Rosebud Garden, and if you're here with kiddies, they can have a wee seat on the wee seat, and they can get a book from the book library, and if you need a bit of help, there is bereavement support. So if your kids need a bit of support or a bit of help or a bit of advice getting you through it, then that very probably helps. Yeah, so we are back in the early 1900s. I don't think we're going to get into the 1800s. I think this cemetery is probably about 1900. The same date, strangely enough, as the one that we found in Cheadle the other day that is on our Angels and Obelisks video. I had to think what I'd called it there. That's quite dark and foreboding. I'm sure it's not. I'm sure George was a lovely man and Isabella was very happy with him. But at the bottom it says, "Rest in peace, for I have suffered." Oh, I thought we'd made it there. I saw 1898, but no, he was born in 1898, died in 1906. Yeah, so this part is all again 1930s, but behind us is a war memorial with the Cross of Sacrifice. And it can have a Cross of Sacrifice because there's above a certain number of war graves on this site, and if there's more than whatever that number is, I can't remember, you can have a Cross of Sacrifice. So these are the same as the ones you see in Belgium and France and bits of Germany where there's a Allied war cemetery. There is the stone, there is the cross with the sword pointing down the way to signify that the fight is done, and behind that is some of the names. I'm guessing these will be names that do not have headstones, but that is a guess. The other little memorial here, those honoured here died in the service of their country and lie buried, and there's where we're going to go. Gorton Brookfield Unitarian Churchyard. So let's go and see if we can find Gorton Brookfield Unitarian Churchyard. Probably not today, because hopefully my van will be ready soon, but that is another to be continued. Right, and this corner is a last chance for getting into the 1800s. There's some very, very nice stones here. That's they're all starting to topple forward very, very slowly. That is 1909, and that is 1906, and that is 1907. But that one there, that's quite cool. That's the angel on the cross at the top there. I do quite like that. We do like that tree chainsaw stuff. So there's Winnie the Pooh up there for Taiga. And I think that is about that. Time to head back to the garage. I'm just going to take one last walk up this little route because there's no point heading straight for the exit. Let's see what we can see up here. This is all 1920s again. That one looks older, but it's not. It's just not as well preserved. Okay, that has been a really, really interesting wee pit stop. I am glad that we came here. We've been doing some tree work, but behind the tree work there is Private Graham of the Royal Engineers from 1946, 1945. I can't quite make that out. Oh wow, that is a cracking looking gravestone. It's Mary Jane, wife of John, from 1921, and John himself from 1936. But I love the sort of monochrome grey and slightly different grey, all the shades of grey. That's one of the most eye-catching gravestones that I've seen in ages. I almost missed this one on the way out. This is a little PS because it's so dark compared to the other Commonwealth War graves. It needs a bit of a clean. But this is Private Higgs from the First World War, 1916, and unusually Arthur, son of the above, who died in 1924, aged 13. That's a really nice wee way to end this video.